I was in Medellin this last weekend. I was just minding my business. One of my friends sent me a post on the expats page. If you guys are thinking about going to Colombia, I highly recommend checking out this expat page. It's the most cringe, most toxic place in the world that you keep wanting reading because the people there are just so negative, but it's so entertaining a lot of times. But this post that I saw particularly caught my eye because it's one of the scariest things that I've ever seen happen in this country. And I'm sure it's happened before, but this is the first time where someone gave like a really detailed account of a robbing and drugging that happened in a club in Cartagena. So the club's name is Artlist Latin Club, and if you look at the reviews, a lot of people complain about how the service is really bad. They overcharge. A freaking bucket of 8 Coronas costs like 900 mil pesos. I highly suggest staying away from this thing because it just seems like a tour scam. Girl ended up going to this club with her brother. She immediately felt that things were off because the girl to guy ratio was crazy. She saw this guy who clearly looked drugged, and the club security held the guy up while the girl was going through his pockets and robbing him. So this girl tried to step in and say that she knew the man, but the bouncers told her to back off. So they took his unconscious body into a car that they had parked outside, and they told the driver to go away. And you guys can read the rest. Just pause the video and you can read the whole story. I originally covered the whole Paul Nguyen situation a couple months ago. I don't know if it's just me, but I feel like every time I hear these stories, it was big news for like a week, and all of a sudden nobody cared about him anymore. For some reason, this one felt a lot different than the rest, and it felt very scary. If you read the other situation that happened, details a whole entire story that feels like a movie. It's one of the craziest things you've ever heard in your life. I think a lot of times it's very easy for us to blame the foreigners, and I talk to a lot of like Colombian locals, right, especially in Medellin, and I ask them about these situations, and they say that it's creating a really bad name for Colombia, but it's also because a lot of these guys are really dumb. I just want to bring awareness to this situation. I feel for this girl. When you're in a foreign country and these bouncers are threatening for your life if you tell the police. I personally haven't had a bad experience with the police, but a lot of people say that the police here are corrupt. This is something that's only going to happen a lot worse in the future. It's pretty big in Medellin right now, and I guess it's happening a lot in Cartagena. Pretty much the big tourist spots here in Colombia. And I don't want to say that all of Colombia is like that because it's clearly not. The thing with Colombia is that you have to be careful with how you move, because one of my subscribers put a comment on a video saying that 60% of people in Colombia are some of the greatest people you'll ever meet in your life, and I can agree with that. But then there's 40% who are straight evil and who are looking to scam you and take advantage of you. And especially because a lot of foreigners here come and they like to flaunt their money. You know, for us, it's not a lot of money, but for Colombians, it is a lot of money. So it's easy to be like a baller here. It's not the same as if you were to do in like Eastern Europe or in Asia, because the safety standards here, unfortunately in Latin America, are not that good. So you have to understand how to move. You have to try to blend in, not be super flashy with your money. Every time I walk around Poblado, it's just filled with a bunch of gringos. Surprisingly, a lot of female tourists that I've seen, like female groups that I've seen walking around. There's a lot of guys who openly talk about that they're only here for the sex tourism, right? There's not necessarily anything wrong with that because, you know, you can do that here. It's more that I think because of the influx of all these foreigners, it's making all like the bad able people come out again. However, I will say that this situation here in this nightclub in Cartagena is a lot different, because I think if anybody were to walk in here just like a normal club, right, and you go in here and they don't let you leave, like that is like really nefarious, scary stuff. I just wish people were a little more aware that this is happening, because the biggest draw nowadays, I'm gonna say it, for a lot of people is the women. This is one of the reasons why I'm happy that I'm married now, because I don't have to deal with all of that BS. But I highly recommend you guys check this out. I'll put a link to the post in the comments below, and you guys can read through the comments, and it's pretty disgusting if I'm being honest. Like some of the way that the other expats react to this girl telling the story. I don't know if you guys feel this too, but it seems that a lot of the expats that come to Medellin are some of the most negative, toxic people ever. And I'm not entirely sure why, because, you know, we're all in this country together. Colombia has opened their borders up to us, to foreigners, and I feel like we need to respect the culture. For some reason, they're just constantly bashing other expats for the most simple of questions, right? A month and a half ago, a guy asked, where can I buy an engagement ring, right? And the whole entire comment section just clowning him, saying that he shouldn't do it, that he's trapped, that she's gonna sell the ring for an iPhone, pretty much inferring that all the women in Colombia are gold diggers and whores and only want you for your money. I'm trying to figure out what the problem is. This kind of stuff happens, I wouldn't say frequently, but it's a common common thing amongst all Colombians or people in Latin America that you have to be careful with how you move. Over this last weekend, I went to Medellin. I was doing a bunch of mansion tours, right? And I was talking to the owners, and it's crazy that people rich and poor, like the taxi drivers and people that live in the poor barrios, they all say the same thing about no dar papaya, right? No des papaya. And essentially it means that don't give people a reason to want to rob you. Don't be dumb. A lot of Western people come to Colombia with this Western mentality because we're used to like a certain amount of safety in Western countries, right? Or in Europe or whatever. Come here into Colombia and you end up getting robbed or played and something like that. Most of the people that I know here have gotten robbed at some point in their life, but 90% of the time is because they put themselves in a really bad situation. Yes, Colombia is actually a pretty safe country if you know where to move. You just have to like stay away from the really touristy areas and try to not get involved with like the really heavy touristy party areas. I'm not saying you can't party in Colombia because that's one of the draws of being here, but doing it so in the more like the low-key areas, like in Medellin, Laureles is really good. My wife and I, we stayed in Belen this last weekend and we felt pretty safe there too, to be honest. The more touristy areas like Cartagena and Parquilleras and Poblado, those are the areas that seem to be infested with this kind of scopolamine and drug scams and all these things happening. So stay safe, guys. This is probably the craziest thing I've ever seen on this page. I don't want this to discourage anybody from coming to the country or living here because it's actually really beautiful, as you guys have seen on my channel, and it's a great place to live. I just think people need to really understand the risks and move better. I'm pretty sick and tired of seeing all this happening, if I'm being honest. All right, catch you later. Bye.